Hey, welcome to Sty Times, all you lawbreakers out there. I must have broken the law. I must have. Welcome, you guys. Welcome, you guys. This evening's topic. I must have broken the law. Yeah. Um, I got some fun little information and little odd things that happened over the years where it made me stop and wonder. I must have broken the law. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks will be able to relate to what I've got to tell you tonight. You'll be able to say, oh, been there, been there. Yeah. I want to, you know, I just can't help myself. I love shouting out the folks that are over in the chat. I see some folks that shared out the show. And here's a good chance for you. Share out the show and get some folks over to hear as much as possible today. Um, but right away, um, Eileen Valou, the fam, she showed up right away. Yeah, she's so great. She's a great, great gal. And look there, we got her all. And hey, I just watched your Beard 101. I didn't have time to leave a comment because I was watching it right out until I had to start the show. Uh, but doggone it, you betcha. That's what I need is a hot oil treatment once a month. I got to start getting a little serious about taking care of my old beard. The I never have a beard like Rollins, but still, he's absolutely right. I'm one. I like a clean beard, boy. Yeah, chasing the reaper. Hey, James, good to see you too. Good to see you. The there's Saucy Shane. Now that great friend of mine, he shared it out right away, boy. He shared out this show right away. Thank you very much there, Shane. And we got the Ingalls family. Hello, hello. Oh, there's Phil sneaking in there. Oh, okay. And it's all shared out, he says. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Don't forget later tonight, Phil on Monday nights usually goes live at about quarter after eight about 8:15 Central Time. I believe that's the time. Right, Phil? But watch for him. As soon as he posts it, hit the set reminder so that you don't miss it. The Joe Shipley, hey, hello. Good evening, Stein community. That's a great way to put it. The Eileen, girl, you for my bail fund. Yeah, right. Yeah. I must have broke the law. I must have. The Oh, there's Cindy. Hey, Stream Fire and Ice. Hey, it's great to see you, Cindy. Thanks for coming on over. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about tonight's show. The title in itself, I'm sure, has some people wondering, what the heck? Where's he going with this? I must have broken the law. Times have changed. That's one thing. That's one thing about being an old guy like me. I grew up in a different world. I mean, and boy, that I tell you what, certain things really changed over time. Even when I was a teenager, if I was just hanging out and wandering around the streets of town, and it was a little after dark, if a squad car is coming down the street, the first thing in my mind wasn't, oh crap, here comes the cops. We'll just turn and head down this street, opposite direction. Here comes the cops. No, we never thought that way. If that squad car all of a sudden slows way down and Cop's looking at you, and he drives by. And he goes down, and you see him do a U-turn down there quite a ways. He comes back, and he slows way down again, and he's looking at you. And then he comes back on your side of the street and stops. Well, back then, the cars didn't have power windows. They were hand crank windows. So cop couldn't just lower the window and talk to you through the passenger window. He had to get out of the squad. He gets out of the squad and he walks up to you, and you're standing there on the street. In your mind, you're going, I wonder what's up. Wonder what's up. You never, ever felt when that cop stopped, I must have done something. I must have broke the law somehow. Why else would that cop be stopped? Back in those days, that cop would probably say, hey, just a little reminder, you're a minor. You get off the streets at 10 o'clock. There's curfew. I don't want to run into you out here after curfew because I don't want to have to give you a ride home and let your folks know that you're a little delinquent, Nowadays, if you're a teenager and you're walking down the street and a cop passes you a couple times, checking you out, and then pulls up and stops, right away you put your hands out like, what did I do? I must have broke the law. That's the first thing in your mind. There's no reason for that cop to address me other than I must have broke the law. When I was a kid, teenager, driving around town. We just cruise around town. You'd have a cop. All of a sudden, you got a cop on your tail, right? You look down at your speedometer and you go, I was a few miles over the speed limit. But I don't think that's why he's behind me. Because really, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just cruising around town. All of a sudden, the red lights come on and a little tap of the siren. Okay, you pull over. Cop walks up to your car and says, hey, I see you got a busted taillight lens on your car here. You want to make sure to get that fixed, tape it up, or do something, because you can't be driving around with that red plastic busted off that taillight. Yes, sir, I'll take care of that. And he'd tell you, now you have a safe night. Behave yourself out here. And you get back in the squad and off you go. He's just making a courtesy stop. But up until you found out that it was a courtesy stop, you didn't say to yourself, I must have broken the law. He's pulling me over. Today, okay, one more example of the past. So you're driving down the road and you're doing 5-10 over the speed limit. There's a cop coming from the other way and you don't realize it till he's right on you. He's coming past and you just go, whoa. Yep, go get him. And you kept driving. You didn't slow down. You didn't change nothing you were doing. You just like, there's a cop. Go get him. Because you didn't feel he was after you. Even though you were speeding slightly over the speed limit. You just didn't have that feeling he's out to get me. That cop is only out here to get me. Nowadays, in fact, I had it happen yesterday. I drove out to our Walmart. It's about a 4.5, 5 mile drive out there. On the way to Walmart, I'm tooling along. It's a 4-lane highway, but it's a 25 mile an hour speed limit, right? All of a sudden, I look in my rearview mirror, glanced up in the rearview mirror. You don't have to look in your rearview mirror every 10 seconds, So I hadn't looked in it for a while. I looked up at the rearview mirror and I go, whoa, shoot. Here I got city cop. right on my bumper. He's right on my bumper. First thing that went through my head is, damn it. I must have broke the law. Tipped my head down, looked at the speedometer. I go, oh yeah, I'm doing about 5 over the speed limit. I'm doing 30 and a 25 here in the middle of town. He'll probably nail me for that. Then I realized, oh, I had stopped at Dollar Tree. Well, that's halfway to Walmart. I just jumped in the truck, took off, didn't even think about it, didn't put my seatbelt on. I'm going, oh, God, I broke the law. Oh, man, he's going to get me for speeding, no seatbelt. And then all of a sudden, the cop turns his signal on, goes into the fast lane, and he passes me, and he looks at me out the window, and he gives me a little wave. Now, he's one of our newer officers, so I don't really know the guy. I know almost every cop we got in our county. And that's when I realized, wait a minute. The minute I saw that it was a squad behind me, I asked myself, what did I do wrong? I must have broke the law. Damn it. Again. And that realization was tough to swallow, that every time I get in a vehicle, I can't drive a city block. If I see a cop, instantly, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. He's got so many reasons to pull me over, because I assure you, I was doing something illegal. There are so many statutory laws, little statutory laws, that you must have broke the law because you left your house. It sounds kind of pathetic, doesn't it? Well, all I can gather is that it's gotten to the point in our society where what they've done is they've made it almost impossible for you to just be yourself and always feel that you're okay. It's like you get up in the morning, as long as you're in your home and you're just doing your own thing, all is good. But the minute you step out the door, you just have it. It's instilled in us that I'm going to end up breaking the law. Somehow I'm going to break the law. It's so straightforward that we all break the law quite often. A week ago, I was downtown. I had to stop at the clinic I go to. I had to stop there. Well, there was no parking out front, so I parked on the opposite side of the street. So I got out of the truck, and the clinic's right across the street, right? But it's in the middle of the block. I just got out of the truck, looked both ways, ran across the street. And it was nice because here comes this guy driving towards me. He's doing about 20, 25 miles an hour. And I could tell he braked, slowed down a little bit, so I didn't have to run as hard. I waved to him, ran into the clinic, got the business taken care of, come back out. What do? I walk out amongst the parked cars, look both ways, take off across the street again in between two oncoming cars, but I knew I could make it to the truck. I get to my truck and I look, and there's a squad car parked behind my truck. He wasn't there for me. But boy, was I convenient. Boy, was I convenient. He had his window down, and he knows me. And he yells, "Hey, Sty." I go, "Hey, hi." He goes, "Come here a minute." I walk to his squad, and he goes, "I can nail you for jaywalking twice." He says, "You walked right in front of oncoming traffic, right through the center of the street. There's no jaywalking signs all over town, and there's a crosswalk down there, and there's one back there. and you didn't use either one. You just broke the law and just cut across the street. I told him, I said, well, I broke the law within reason. I looked both ways to make sure I am not going to cause an obstruction or an accident of some sort. And he goes, it doesn't matter, Sty. You broke the law. And him and I got into about a 10-minute discussion about my opinion on breaking the law. And he agreed. He agreed. He says, you know, he says, you're right. The minute you step out of your door and you go about public life in any sense, you will inadvertently, in one way or another, break the law. He says, you know, usually the elderly are a little less guilty of it. I said, that's not true either. I don't believe that either. I've seen elderly jaywalk all the time. I see quite often elderly will be out walking their dog. Their dog will take a dump on the side of the road in somebody's lawn, and they'll look around. They don't pull their little baggie out and pick that turd up. They just keep walking. Well, that's breaking the law. And I guarantee you, if that elderly person is 3 blocks away from where that dog took the dump, and a squad car pulled up and the cop got out of that squad car, that elderly person, first thing in their mind, oh, I must have broke the law. Oh, yeah, I left a dog turd back there. They're here for me. They've come to get me because I'm a lawbreaker. We can't avoid breaking the law. Johnny Bravo, I do catch a few of the comments. That's great. I've seen elderly driving on the sidewalk at least once per month. I've seen elderly in our town get their car caught between because we got these garbage bins along the streets, and they're in between the light poles on the streets. Well, there's just enough room between that bin and that light pole that if you're real careful, you could squeeze a vehicle in there. Half on the street, half on the sidewalk, light pole right at your front bumper, and that garbage bin maybe 2 feet from your rear bumper. You wouldn't believe how many times I've seen elderly do that, actually do that. And then they're out there it's fun to watch because they're out there for a half an hour backing up, back and forth, to finally weasel that car out of that tight spot. And any one of them that has the patience to do that, I say, well, that's a good citizen right there. I'm not that dang patient. If I found myself stuck in that case, that garbage bin would be knocked right out of the concrete, knocked over. I'd back into that thing, push until I had enough space to pull out. I must have broke the law. Well, I broke the law by parking between the two in the first place. But I don't believe that a person can wake up in the morning without the risk of breaking the law. Now, I'm guilty of it. I love to say, oh, look at that law-breaking little jerk down there, what he's doing. Oh, there's another one. Just another lawbreaker. Dang people. I never look at myself and say, it's Sty. You broke about 15 laws this afternoon. Well, as long as I don't see a cop, I don't feel so bad about it. But if I see a cop 6 blocks away, have you ever done that? I'll see a cop sitting on the side of the road 6 blocks down from me. And you know he's got a speed trap set up there. He's just watching for speeders coming through town. Well, hell, it's only a block out of the way. Well, 2 blocks, one up and then one back. I'll take a left and I'll go 3 blocks past them and then take a right and come back out to that highway, get back on the highway. Why should I have to do that? Well, it's probably because I must have broken the law. But that cop don't know that I broke the law back there somewhere. He don't know that. But after the break, I'm going to talk about how law enforcement views the fact that we all break the law one way or the other. I've met very few people, and even those people, I kind of question their sincerity. But I've met very few people that won't admit that they've ever been speeding in their car. Now, I had one fella that, oh man, he swore up and down. I've been driving for 26 years. I've never had a citation, never got a ticket for anything. I never speed, never. Always wear my seatbelt. I follow the law. No ifs, ands, or buts. Well, he was preaching that to a few of us guys down at the coffee shop one day. And we're all down there. Yeah. We heard it before. Mister, I follow every little law out there. You'll never catch me doing a thing wrong. A couple days later, he's always there for coffee, morning coffee. A couple days later, I walked in there and I grabbed a chair at that big table, said hi to all the guys. I said, well, where's Terry? Why isn't he here? Or something happened to him, something? And one of the fellas happens to be a local PD, local officer. He goes, Terry's embarrassed. He probably won't show up for about a week or so, hoping that if he stays away long enough, we'll forget and not bring it up. I go, what? What? Bring what up? He says, state trooper pulled him over yesterday. He was doing 18 miles over the speed limit in a 55 zone coming into town. I said, 18 miles over, huh? Boy, you're just humping it, eh? I said, she's doing over, it's doing 70 miles an hour, close to 70 miles an hour. But he never breaks the law. And I asked those guys, I said, do you think when that officer walked up to him, he had that, I must have broke the law look? The guy that never breaks the law. Got nailed good. I was so proud of him. Yeah. But if a person truly knew all of the statutes that there are that you can inadvertently violate without having a single clue that you're breaking the law, how many are out there? And if you got charged with every time that you broke one of those little statutory laws, you'd have to get a second full-time job just to pay the fines. You really would. So because I've been involved with law enforcement over the years, and I've had my little run-ins with the law, and that I've developed quite the opinion and in some cases firm position on these little laws and how they affect our daily lives and how it's changed our frame of mind. When I was growing up, my dad was the chief of police of a small suburb community of Minneapolis. Population was about 1,800 people in our little small town. My pop, he only had 3 other officers, and they would work shifts. He worked them full time, all three of them. They would work shifts with him or opposite of him so that he could go home and sleep once in a while. And yeah, but oh boy, my old man, he worked and worked and worked all the time. But when I was growing up, and I saw it hundreds of times, we had one squad car in our town. That was my dad's. And he would let his other officers use the squad when they were on shift alone. It was amazing that the only time there were two officers on duty was Friday and Saturday nights. That was it. Otherwise, it's only one officer on duty at any time of the day, right? And one squad car. But if that squad car came through the neighborhood, all the kids would run out and wave, and they'd look for who's the officer in the car. My dad's nickname was Porky. Now that nickname he had since 1950. When we got into the late 60s, he didn't like his nickname so well anymore. Yeah. They started adding Peg to that nickname, all the young hippie types, but growing up, my old man, and he'd drive through one of the neighborhoods and all the kids are yelling, "Hi, Porky, hey, Porky, hi," And if he saw a group of kids, they go like this at him, and he'd hit that big old siren, that was on the car. And he'd just keep rolling through the neighborhood. Nobody said, "Oh shit, here comes the cops." If you had a problem, if things weren't going good, you just needed backup for a situation of some kind. You see a squad car, you run over to the squad car and say, "Hey, Porky," or Swede. He was my dad's right-hand man for 16 years. And they called him the Black Swede. And because he was, pure Swedish guy, but he had the blackest, curliest, or wavy hair you ever saw. And they called him the Black Swede. But same way, he'd go down the street, all the kids would yell, "Hey, Swede, hi, Swede." But even us kids knew if you were an adult and you got out of line down at one of our 5 bars in town, if you got out of line, you don't want the Swede being on duty. That boy could hurt you. But when it came to the kids, we all knew if you have an issue, go to the cop. Go to that local cop. Even the troublemakers, the delinquents in our town, ran to the cops because they were buddies. Those cops looked out for us. They took care of us. And I'm going to talk about why we didn't always ask ourselves or say to ourselves, "I must have broken the law." We didn't do that back then. And there's a good reason why we didn't do that. But we're hitting that halfway mark, guys. So I have to run this for my wonderful channel members. Every live stream I do, my channel members, they get shouted out. So bear with me. It's only about 1.5 minutes long. big thank you to all those great channel members there. Hey, feel free, guys. Hit that join button down below. You can become a member yourself. Yeah. Hey, so back in the day, I'll never forget my father was in front of the city council. And a couple of city council members, back then, the city, if you violated city ordinances and our chief of police were to fine you, or well, to give you a citation, and you paid that fine, well, the city got to keep all that cash, right? So they were pushing him, saying, you need to write more citations. And he said, for what? And they said, for people that violate city ordinance. And he said, well, you wrote those laws. You go out there and write those people tickets. And they said, but that's your job. He says, no. I'm your chief of police, and my officers, like me, are peace officers. We're here to keep the peace. We are not law enforcement officers. You want a law enforcement, have your city planner or one of your city commissioners go out and write those citations for city ordinances. Don't ask us law enforcement in your minds to spend our days making money for the city. Our job is to be peace officers and to ensure each and every citizen a peaceful existence in our town, in our community. That's why he was their chief of police for so many years. The community called him the father of Spring Park. It was the town of Spring Park, city of Spring Park. They called him the father of Spring Park because everything he did was to ensure that people's children had a safe, peaceful existence in our community. Now, our community had 5 bars. That community was only 4 miles down one big, long, straight stretch, and then 2.5 miles the other direction. And it was because it was an island. Our city, our community virtually was an island. You had to cross a bridge over water from any direction to get to our community. So it was odd shaped. It was almost like a odd shaped T was the shape of our community. And so it didn't have a huge landmass to it. But 1,800 people in 5 bars. Only one of those 5 bars would have been considered an average-sized bar. All the others were clubs located on the waterfronts, and they were big clubs. We had one called the Lakeview. That was a big club. Right next door to it was the Downbeat. That was a big club. On Fridays, we were so close to Minneapolis metro area that on Fridays, our population would go from 1,800 people to between 8,000 and 10,000 people. Everybody was coming out to the lake. Everybody was hanging out in those clubs. Those clubs would be standing room only, packed tight. My dad, when he'd get home from a shift, my mother would ask him how'd tonight go, and he'd say, well, we had a couple of scuffles, normal. It's a good night. It was a good night, Or he'd come home and say, oh, man, we didn't even have to be on duty tonight. What a boring night. There was nothing going on. There was nobody doing nothing, nowhere, no how. And he says, so got to sleep in the squad car quite a bit tonight. But that's the way it was. Everybody, when they saw a police officer, never said to themselves, I must have broken the law. there's a cop coming over here. If one of those officers walking up to you, he's walking up to ask you how you doing and hi, it's been a while, I haven't seen you. They were friends. They were friends in our community. Oh yeah, and the state and the county and the city kept writing new laws. New laws. If you break that little law, you're going to have to pay that fine. Here's another law. There's another law. Oh, there's more fines. But back then we had officers that said, that ain't my job. That ain't my duty. I am not here to punish people for making simple mistakes in life. Like, I tell you what, if you jaywalked in our town, my dad might pull up with the squad, see you jaywalking, yell at you. You might want to speed it up next time you get your butt run over. And he'd drive off. He's not going to give him a citation. We've had people in this town here get citations for improper use of crosswalk. Because they were 3 feet off of the crosswalk walking across the street. They weren't in the crosswalk, they were 3 feet outside of it and walking across the street. So they got a citation for improper use of the crosswalk. And I told one of the officers, I want to see you give me one of them tickets. And he goes, well, go ahead and walk across the street that way, then I'll give you a ticket. I said, because I'm going to court and arguing it. I said, I'm going to make sure my GoPro is going too. I want it on film. And he goes, that's ridiculous. I said, no, you write me a citation because I'm only 2 or 3 feet out of that crosswalk when I walk across the street and I'm not obstructing traffic or anything, is absolutely ridiculous. He goes, it's a law. And I said, okay, it's a law if you're willing to submit to it. I said, but I think if I get in the courtroom, explain to the judge that I did not obstruct traffic, and here's some video footage of me crossing that street. And the charge is improper use of the crosswalk. How can I have improper use of the crosswalk? I never was in it. I never used it. How can I improperly use something that I was 3 feet away from? And that officer says, well, that's just BS nitpicking. I said, well, that's because you're going to give me a BS citation for something that's BS, and it just puts $35 into the city's general fund. And well, actually it puts half of it in the city fund, the other half goes in the police fund. I said, you're financing yourselves and the city at the detriment of every citizen in the city that will do things that are just simple mistakes. They didn't have intent to break a law. Many of these laws we don't even know about. There's E-Waste Mike. Hey, Mike, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Hi, B-Wizzle. But see, when I think of law-abiding individuals, those are people that don't commit intentional misdemeanors or felonies. The petty misdemeanors are just revenue generators. Now, I've sat in briefings with law enforcement and heard chief of police, I've heard sheriffs direct their officers, you need to do more traffic stops. And the officers are saying, but we have other issues. We get calls for domestics, we get calls for property damage, we get calls for this and that. we're busy, and have their superior officers tell them, you're never too busy to do traffic. So they quota these officers and tell them, if you don't write XYZ number of citations, then that's going to be a check mark against your performance. And they say, well, what if we don't have anybody committing a traffic violation? Everybody is guilty, is what they're told. And I'm sorry, I don't like that, but I agree. There are enough laws on the books. They will find something you did. If they really want to, they will. And the reason they stop people, and I found this now in 5 different law enforcement agencies in our area, and they all stress the same thing. You pull somebody over for a traffic violation, you might just give them a warning. They like that. They're good with that if it's real minor. Give them a warning, just let them go. But drag it out. And while you're dragging it out, look at who's in the car, look at what's in the car. You see something that gives you probable cause. Now you take them out of the car. Now you search the car. Now you find drugs. You find that open bottle, or you find a beer can that's been drank, but it's an empty beer can, but it's under your driver's seat. You see where they're going with that. We'll stop you for this minor thing so that we have the opportunity to look for one of all these other laws we have that we'll be able to cite you. And now we're making the money. Because if I pull you over for no seatbelt, but I catch you with open bottle in your car here in Wisconsin, open bottle in the car is $300. Plus you got to go through all of the sobriety test, breathalyzer, all the BS. You're there for 45 minutes to an hour trying to prove you're innocent. But they still walked away making $300 off you. I must have broke the law. Oh yeah, me Dibble says, I saw a video with 9 officers stopping motorbikes for safety stops. Okay, when I used to ride over in Minnesota, it is quite a few years ago, back in the 70s, I'm a local. I lived there. I ride all over the place on my scooter, man. I had a 1200 Harley at the time. Riding all over on that chopper. Everybody knew me. They'd see me go by with that chopper and they go, oh, there goes Sty, you know. Well, they heard that there was a certain couple of bike clubs that were coming through Minnesota, and they're doing this long tour, right? And these 2 clubs typically did not get along. Those 2 colors didn't match. And they had this tour planned, both of them independently, and they didn't know the other club was also going through Minnesota at the same time this other club was. So right away they panicked, the state panicked, and they telling all the local sheriff departments and the local PDs, you see any bikers, pull them over based on we're doing a safety check. We want to make sure all your lights work, blah, 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 blah. I got stopped 7 times in 3 days. When I lived in Minnesota, I lived in Hennepin County. That's one of the most populated counties in the state. And I couldn't believe. Now, a single officer that stopped me that I know. And I'm trying to tell him, you know, hey, born and raised right there in Spring Park. You know, I'm only 6 miles from there. and I'm riding by myself. You think I belong to one of these clubs? Oh, it's not because of the clubs. We're stopping you to do a safety check on your bike. I said, I've already been stopped a half a dozen times. What the heck? You know, things on my bike don't go to hell every 15 minutes. You guys don't have to be stopping me all the time, every stinking day. And the worst part was is two officers managed to find a reason to give me a citation. One gave me a citation because my tail light, my brake light, wasn't bright enough. He says, it's not illuminated enough when you hit the brakes to warn vehicles behind you. And I'm standing my bike backwards looking at the tail light and I'm hitting the brake. They're brighter than sin. But it's his opinion against mine, right? Wasn't in the days of I can film it with my phone or I got a GoPro, you know. So it was his word against mine. And I guarantee you, the judge is going to say, oh, you just pay the citation and shut up. The other one was because my license plate was only held on with one bolt. And it was tipped. He said it wasn't improper display of the license plate. That was a $15 fine. Because the license plate was there and you could see it. I mean, it wasn't cocked so bad that you had to stand on your head to read it. It was at a little bit of an angle, but one of the bolts worked its way out. And I just never put one back in. But I got a citation for that because I must have broke the law. Thank you, Phil, for reminding folks they can become members. That's great of you. Thank you. But I tell you, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it that I am a habitual lawbreaker. There are so many laws that I know I've had machinery and vehicles that the decibel rate was too high on them. They were just too noisy based on the city ordinance. But nobody ever complained. But if somebody had, or if a cop would have been close by, I would have gotten a citation for running that piece of machinery. Even though nobody ever complained. I used the machinery in the middle of the afternoon. You should be awake unless you're working graveyard shift. If I knew somebody next door worked graveyard shift, I'd go over and talk to them and say, hey, I got to get this done. And that machine is so damn loud. Is there going to be a issue? And I'd work it out with them. I don't need a cop to come and write the citation. I'll talk to my neighbor, you know. But instead, you do what you got to do, and you must have broke the law. You must have broke the law. There's got to be a law. And if there isn't a law, comes that old saying, there ought to be a law. I've said it so many times. You see somebody do something so stupid, and you go, oh my God, there ought to be a law. There ought to be a law that you can't do that. No, there shouldn't be a law. It should be, yeah, somebody in the community needs to walk up to that person and say, don't do that no more. Don't do that. That ain't cool. Cut that crap out. Well, there's no law. Well, yeah, guess what? I'm the law today. Don't do that no more in our community, in our town. Just stop it. Well, why don't you call the cops? Because the cop on duty lives way on the other end of town. He don't care what you're doing down here. I do. Stop doing that. We don't need a law. There ought to be a law. There ought to be a law. Create some new laws. Why not? Why not? Because it's not going to change anything. Because, like I said, every time I step out in public and go about my business, somewhere along the route, I'm going to trip up and I'll have to say to myself, I must have broken the law. Yep. And the reason I know that is because those people are looking at me like, why does he get to do that? They know the law and I didn't. Thank you, Gemma. Good to see you, girl. So yeah, we're getting close to the end of the show. And I only have one rule on my channel, and that includes this show, my streams, my videos. You know, I always want the comments available for people so they can chat and interact. And I only have one rule, one law on the Sty North channel, and that's respect. We just all respect each other. And if somebody's not being respectful, then there's repercussions, you know. But I never have that issue. I never have that issue of people disrespecting each other here. We don't need laws. We don't need a bunch of rules. We just need to respect each other. And I think society needs that. We don't need all these dang moneymakers that they sell to us as law. This is the law. You got to toe the line, follow the law. But I can't pay. I can't afford all these laws. And I've seen documentaries where individuals have had law enforcement target them and literally citation them into bankruptcy. And everything they cited them for was petty, was a petty misdemeanor, didn't hurt another person, didn't hurt anybody. It was a non-consequential so-called crime. Eileen, you're too sweet, girl. You don't have to be doing that. You are so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. But to think that the ability for law enforcement to even do that, to even contemplate the possibility of just watching it your every move and citing you for everything that you may do against one of those petty misdemeanor type statutes, whether it be your community's ordinances, the county's laws, the state's laws, federal, that's a whole different, boy, that would be a whole different show, wouldn't it? But I'm talking about local, your daily life. And like I said, when I was a younger man, we never felt anxiety about going out there doing anything. In fact, back then, it was so much easier when all of a sudden, whoo, there's the red lights, and you go, uh-oh, and you pull over, and you're going, I don't know how many times when I was a young man, an officer would walk up to the car window, and I go, what's this going to cost me? Because I was guilty of sin. You know, you're doing 30 miles an hour over the speed limit in town. You don't say, I must have broken the law. You say, oh, shit, he caught me. He caught me. Because you know you're breaking the law. And I was doing it intentionally. I'm in a hurry. I am one, I just do not believe. I don't like laws that don't have a damage attached to them. I don't. That's me personally. If you or someone else or someone else's property was not damaged, there's no damage, then there shouldn't be you shouldn't be able to be charged for something that might have happened. See, that's like, for me, that's like speeding. They don't need speed limits. They need speed suggestions. And then the officers, as peace officers, protecting the interests and the well-being of its community, sees you doing, okay, so it's a 55-mile-an-hour suggested speed limit. You come flying through doing 90, and there's kids standing out on the road waiting for the school bus. Well, the officer pulls your butt over, doesn't charge you with speeding, charges you with reckless endangerment, you moron. And if the guy said, well, there was no other cars on the road. No, but there were little kids standing on the side of the road waiting for the school bus, so I'm charging you with reckless endangerment. We don't need speeding laws. You don't go to jail for common speeding. You just have to pay the bill. And those are the type of laws I don't like, where all it is nobody was lost anything. There was no damage involved whatsoever, except that you have to pay a $3,000-$5,000 fine for something that never hurt anyone, except you. It hurt you financially. That's where I wish we could turn the clock back to the late 1960s and bring that level of law back, where we had peace officers, not law enforcement officers. And the Johnny Bravo, that's sweet. 100 years ago, typewriting while driving. Oh, I was writing my girlfriend a letter and I slammed into that horse and carriage in front of me. Oh, for crying out loud. So there you go, guys. I must have broke the law. We're wrapping up this this episode of Sty Times. I want to thank you all for being here. It was a blast. It's always great to see you folks. And I hope to see you Wednesday night for the next Sty Times. We're going to talk about something old versus new in that show. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. You'll see what that show is after on the exit. But you all take care of yourselves, and I'll see you Wednesday evening at Sty Times Live. Until then, bye-bye.